Welcome everyone to our January 2025 AA Technology Sharing Session. The idea for these sharing sessions came about during the 2023 National AA Technology Workshop. There was a common feeling that our community of technology trusted servants needed more frequent opportunities to get together and share our experience than just once a year. These monthly sessions are an attempt to meet that need. The sessions will always be the last Tuesday of each month at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. The one exception is that our upcoming December
Oh,
2024 session will be on December 17th, but it got canceled to avoid conflicts with the New Year's Eve. The topic of today's session,
mhm.
WordPress Security, Part 2. After the presentation, we'll have about 30 minutes for questions and sharing. So as you listen to the presentation, please write down any questions or comments that come to mind so you won't forget them. We'll finish at 8:30 p.m., 5:30 Pacific time. These sharing sessions and the format are an experiment, so please provide your feedback at the end through the survey link that we'll put in the chat. For these sharing sessions to evolve in a long-term, sustainable service project, we need your help. Please consider signing up to Chair Technology's sharing session. This will involve picking the topic and arranging the presenters. The steering committee will gladly help you, and if that's needed. And then you will also do what I'm doing now. Read the format and facilitate the session itself. While you're welcome to sign up, while you're welcome to sign up to chair a month as an individual, feel free to also take it on as an area or group of trusted servants. If you're available to chair a session or interested in serving on our steering committee, please reach out to techsharing@gmail.com. We also appreciate any contributions to help with our virtual Zoom expenses through our home group online treasury account. And the link will be posted in the chat for you. There may be links and other information put in the chat through the session today so that you don't have to worry about trying to collect it all and can just listen and follow along. It will all be available here in this Google Doc. Lastly, please consider these sharing sessions as a learning group. Very few of us are experts in technology. We're just AA members that made ourselves available to help our local service entities. And because of that, we now have some experience to share. So, with that in mind, let's get into today's topic. Sean S. He is going to be sharing about different ways of using WordPress security, and this is part 2. Welcome, Sean.
Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whichever the case may be. Part one of this presentation was presented in August of 2024, and you should be able to look through the archives that Brett provided in the chat to view that if you have any questions. I will be referring back to some of the topics that I mentioned in there. So I am in Detroit, Michigan, currently serving as Area 33's web chairperson through the end of this calendar year. My information is there on the slide. So the agenda for today, first off, I'm going to do a very, very brief recap of the previous session. I'm going to talk about CAPTCHAs and preventing form spam. Which was the topic of a lot of questions from part one. I'm going to talk about software update hygiene and what to do in case you think you may have possibly been hacked. Then we're really going to dive into the meat of today's session. It deals with the principle of least privilege. Going to be a couple of demos on that topic to minimize the impact of an attack, either internal or external. And lastly, time permitting, we'll deal with HSTS, which is Host Strict Transport Security, I believe. and also some ways you can test the hardening work that you've done on your website as a result of the previous session and this session. And lastly, we'll wrap it up with questions and discussions. So previously on the tech sharing sessions, um, we talked about security as a definition, precautions taken to guard against crime, attack, sabotage, and espionage. And ultimately, that gives you freedom from care, anxiety, or doubt, a well-founded confidence that you have done everything you can possibly can to secure your website. This is the topics we covered in part one. We did a brief under the hood look at WordPress architecture to understand how we are securing it. And then we looked at some quick and easy things you can do and some plugins that you can implement to make yourself not be an easy target for hackers. The whole idea is don't be easy prey, and hopefully they'll move on to the next website and not hack yours. We talked about some security related terms. Talked about these ones at the in the previous presentation, most notably authentication, verifying you are who you say you are. And then we talked about attack vectors, which are, and attack surface. Attack vector is a single way someone can access your network, and then the attack surface is all of the possible ways. So the example was an attack vector is the broken latch on the window in the back bedroom window, and the attack surface would be all of the latches on all of the windows, plus the front door, plus the back door, plus the garage door, plus the chimney if you're being attacked by Santa Claus. So today we'll be dealing more with authorization. Once you've authenticated who you are, then we will deal with what you can do once you're in. So what are you authorized to do? Talk about the principle of least privilege. You're only authorized to see the things you need to see and do the things you need to do and have been trained to do in order to do your job. Talk a very, very little bit about encryption, which is changing messages into a secret code so that they cannot be understood without special equipment or knowledge. And also in terms of encryption, encryption at rest means the data as it's stored, it's kind of, it needs to be decrypted as it's read from disk. And then encryption in transit, that's like your SSL, the little lock that you see at the top of your web browser, that prevents it from being eavesdropped as it's being transmitted from one place to another place. And lastly, we'll talk about CAPTCHA, which is actually an acronym, stands for Completely Automated Public Turing Test to Tell Computers and Humans Apart. Don't know is basically a test to determine if something is a computer or a human. Alrighty. Also talk about some plugins. It's really for reference. We talked about these plugins in part one, and this slide deck will be made available as part of the session notes. And all of these are links to the various plugins that I've mentioned. I will highlight that this ZAP or Z attack proxy is not a WordPress plugin. That's actually a Java application that you could download to basically run an attack, run kind of a white hat hacker type attack against your website to look at the results of your hardening efforts. And that brings us to our first main topic for today. Are you a robot? Securing your site from robots and spam form entries. You may remember this slide from the previous presentation where we talked about your hosting environment. And then we have this outer protection perimeter of the web hosting provider. And then out here on the internet, we have uh, things that are accessible to the outside world. And we talked about the attack vectors being ways into the innards of your website. Your form entries, your comments, your login form is another way that someone could possibly gain access to your environment. And then also we talked a little bit about the structure of WordPress. So CAPTCHA and anti-spam. CAPTCHA, basically, it's highly dependent upon, well, first off, I think we've all by this point seen CAPTCHAs. The earliest incarnation was point to all the bicycles or all the stoplights that you see in this image. And with the technology, they've with the as that technology has advanced, there have been simpler, less interactive ways for you to tell whether it's actually a human browsing the website. Um, all of this compatibility or all of this configuration, specifically with regard to CAPTCHAs and spam protection, is going to be dependent upon whatever plugin or system you use to create the forms on your website. Stuff like Gravity forums that we've seen in um, previous tech sharing sessions. My particular favorite is Forminator. Um, so just about all of those form solutions have a way to integrate with a CAPTCHA solution. Some of them require a premium add-on. Some of them include that in the free version. The three main names are HCAPTCHA, Google reCAPTCHA, and the one we'll be working with today, which seems to be getting a lot more traction, and that's Cloudflare Turnstile. Cloudflare Turnstile is completely free. HCAPTCHA and reCAPTCHA both have free levels, but after you make so many requests, you are charged a nominal fee. I think it's a couple cents per request after the first 10,000 or something like that. All of these solutions require an API key. API stands for Application Programming Interface. It's basically, for lack of a better description, it's a user ID and a password that allows one piece of computer code to talk to another piece of computer code securely. And in all of this case, refer to the documentation that's appropriate to the plugins you are using on your website. And we'll see an example of what the API key looks like in the demo. Then quickly about spam protection. This is specifically regarding comment spam and form submission spam. This does not apply to email. Like if someone were to hack your WordPress website and start relaying mail via SMTP through your site, that is a whole nother session that we won't be getting into today. Ideally, a whole lot of spam protection should not be necessary if you've turned off comments, which we talked about in part one of the presentation, and if you've got a good CAPTCHA solution working. So some of the big names or big plugins that are used for this, we're going to be looking at Anti-Spam Bee. There's another one out there that I used to use regularly called Akismet. The challenge is Akismet is owned by a company called Automatic. And just in the past couple months, there's been a lot of WordPress drama within the WordPress community regarding that company Automatic with two T's. So I've chosen to change gears and focus on Anti-Spam Bee in this presentation. Some of these spam protection solutions require an API key, some do not.
Oh, it's already started.
Yes, it has. Okay, and with that note, we will move into demo 3. And for the latecomers, demo 1 and 2 were in part 1 of the presentation. So this is the actual first demo of today's presentation, which is part 2. Okay, so Demo 3, caption form spam. I'm going to jump over into my tab. Demo 3, I am going to log in as Grand Poobah, which is the administrative user on our little website here. Apologize in advance for how slow some of this may be performing. I am running several instances of WordPress locally on my laptop from which I'm running the presentation. So it's not running the speediest. So, should be watching Jeopardy right now.
Who prayed for patience?
Thank you.
I just want to mention if anybody wants to be on our email list, post your email and name and area in the chat. Please.
Here we go. Remind me later. What was that? Can we get that session on the book, Sean, in the comments?
That was me commenting about when you mentioned getting your WordPress hijacked as a spam relay.
Oh, okay.
You said that's for another session. I said, can we get that session on the book, Sean?
Oh, okay, gotcha. All right. Yeah, I'll defer to someone else who has expertise in that. That's not my favorite topic to discuss. All right, now that the patience gods have worked with us, we're going to go into the plugins. I have already downloaded. It's called Simple Cloudflare Turnstile here. I'm just going to go ahead and activate it. Now, in order to use this, you do need to go to cloudflare.com and create yourself an account. It's totally free. And then once this plugin activates, it gives us, this is where we would go on Cloudflare's dashboard to create ourselves a free turnstile API key. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Now, prior to the start of the meeting, I already created my account and logged in. And I'm actually going to create a new widget. We're going to call this TSS Demo 3A because I already created one. All you have to do is add a host name. This is the host name from which you will be making API calls. So the name of my demo lab web server is demo3.local. Hit add. Okay. All of these other settings defaults are good. I'm going to go ahead and create. And then it gives us a site key, which is basically the equivalent of a username. I'm going to copy that, paste that into site key here. Go back to this tab. Secret key is kind of like a password. And don't worry about anonymizing those because that's going to be that API key pair is going to be deleted immediately after we follow this, or after we wrap up the session. We'll go into advanced settings. I'm going to, for purposes of demo, I'm going to leave it on always. But you can set it such that the little Cloudflare turnstile widget on your login form only shows up if human interaction is required. And we're going to enable it for all of the WordPress native form elements here. And then the reason I like Cloudflare turnstile is it integrates natively with all of these various plugin forms. If it detects the installation of Forminator, for example, it will show you additional integrations to integrate with, or additional checkboxes for those. Let me go ahead and save my changes. kill some unnecessary windows here to try and hopefully speed up my processes. Okay, API keys have been updated, verifying, okay, it has successfully integrated itself with the API, with the Cloudflare API. So I'm going to go ahead and log out real quick and show you the effect. Rolling, 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 praying for patience. There we go. Okay. You log in because it should now have a little, that's interesting. It should have a little additional widget down here that says verified by Cloudflare. Not sure why it's doing that or not doing that, but in the interest of time, we're going to move on. But like I said, it should be in there. All right. First half of demo 3 that deals with the CAPTCHA or a CAPTCHA replacement using Cloudflare Turnstile. Next up, we'll move on to preventing form spam. We're going to go back into our plugins. And so Akismet is one of the tools. I'm going to activate anti-spam bee here, which I downloaded in advance. And Cloudflare, okay. Interesting. Okay. I'll sort that out later. Apparently, I didn't wait long enough after I did my little test. All right, so we're going to go into anti-spam bee settings. And one of the reasons I like this is it has very good manual. It explains what each of all of these settings does. So it explains exactly what that is and why you would want to do that. I typically will delete existing spam after 10 days, and I want to be notified if any spam comments do make their way into the into my comments section. I'm going to go ahead and save those changes. And now I am going to go back into the settings page, test my responses. Verify, okay. And now I'm going to log out. And we should see that, there it is. So that's the indicator that Cloudflare is working successfully and protecting our login form from dastardly robots. That is the end of demo 3. Any questions I can answer on that real quick? Okay. Next up, we have software update hygiene. So keeping your software up to date will help you prevent attacks. However, it is not always, it can create other problems. So I think by now we've all been at a point where we've logged onto our website and found something isn't working, the calendar isn't working, or maybe we've gotten a text from our delegate saying, hey, the website is down. And you're on the hook to answer what happened. Of course, everyone jumps to the conclusion, hey, did I get hacked? Possible, but that's not always the case. Human error could be involved. People hit update all willy-nilly, and plugin A will sometimes cause conflicts with plugin B. I think we've all had that. So what happened to my website? Did I get hacked? First and foremost, do not panic. So if you set up your security plugin correctly, like we did in part 1 of this presentation, back in August, you would have gotten alerts of failed logins or logouts when the attacker was trying to attack. You might have seen some alerts about critical files being changed, and you might see some site scan results if it detected malware. So next thing you want to do, review log files. Who did what and when did they do it? Years and years of working in IT has shown me that just about everything is logged, and that's a really good way of figuring out exactly what happened. Get to play a game of Clue. Colonel Mustard did it in the ballroom with the candlestick. First and foremost, go to your web hosting provider. They likely have logs that you can review. Oh, sorry, Captain Clicky. Here we go. So now also you could use, like we looked at solid security. WordFence also has some security tools, so you may be able to detect some interesting log entries there that might give you a clue. Another thing we're going to be looking at in the next demo is a plugin called Activity Logs that does a really good, basically it narcs on who did what to who, which post, every modification or change done to your database. And the other thing you could do, or you can keep your fellows honest, is you could ask your other users or admins, hey, did someone update the WordPress version? Did someone click that button that automatically appears, hey, the new version of WordPress is updated, update now, and break everything? Did someone update any plugins? And then also we'll look at ways you can roll back some of these changes if someone got a bit ahead of themselves in updating their WordPress or their plugin versions, or if they did a hack. So first and foremost, before you make any changes in your environment, especially plugin updates, etc., make a local backup. Save yourself some grief. That way you can easily revert back to it. Your hosting provider may also have a backup solution. Then there is a plugin called Rollback WP Core that will allow you to go back to a previous version of WordPress if someone was a little too overzealous in doing their upgrade. There's a similar plugin that allows you to roll back any plugins that you may have updated to try and diagnose those conflicts if one plugin is conflicting with another one. And lastly, if you think you've been hacked, please, please, please engage a professional. And there we go. Let's see if there's any. Okay, just checking my prompter notes. All right, so let's get into our demo 4. We've got ourselves a little oopsie. So let me log in on my demo 4 instance, and I'm going to go into plugins, and I'm going to activate that activity log plugin that I mentioned. That is like a little snitch telling us who did what to what posts when they did it. So note that this new activity menu or activity log shows up in the admin menu. I'm going to go into settings. By default, it wants to keep all log entries for 30 days. That can get really big if you have a very busy site. So you may want to shorten that. Also, I have seen this or solutions like this start filling up database, so you can actually delete all of the log entries. Now that also makes it really good for a hacker who knows what they're doing to cover their tracks, but you know, it's an option. So now we're going to go in. So I'm going to save my settings. I don't think I made any modifications. So then we go into the activity log and we see that 58 seconds ago, Grand Poobah from IP address, localhost, activated the activity log plugin. This is when I was doing some testing earlier in the day. So we're going to allow this activity log to run in the background as we're doing the rest of the demos. And then we'll take a look back at the end of demo 5 to see what this has done for us. All right, that's the first plugin for this demo is activity logs. Go back into my plugins and I'm going to activate block visibility. Block visibility is a plugin we'll be using later. What that does is it allows you to have very fine-grained controls over who can see what elements of a particular page or post. So I'm just going to turn that on now, mostly so it shows up in the logs. And we'll be exploiting that in demo 5. I also turned on core rollback. That allows you to go to a previous version of WordPress, and WP rollback. That allows you to roll back to a previous version of a theme or plugin. I'm going to go ahead and activate all 3 of these. Apply. Okay, so after I activate that, you may notice that each of our plugins in our list has this new option here called rollback. So I'm going to hit rollback for Akismet since I'm not actively running it. And this actually goes to the WordPress.org plugin directory, and it shows all of the published versions of that particular plugin. And say I want to go back to version 5.3.1 because I knew everything was working when I was running that version. So I can roll back that plugin. And then if I go back to my plugin list, we will see that indeed we have rolled back to Akismet 5.3.1. So I have a colleague, friend of mine who likes to keep everything absolutely up to date as quickly as possible, and occasionally that has caused issues for us. So that's how I learned about this plugin rollback utility. Similarly, under tools, we have a new menu option called rollback core. And this will allow me to say, for example, someone hit the upgrade to the latest version of WordPress on the dashboard a little prematurely. I can roll back to a previous published version of WordPress. I'm not going to do that because that'll break this environment, but I did want to show you that that is possible. It does give you the appropriate warnings, and of course, you want to back everything up. And that is the end of demo 4, recovering from the oopsies. Any questions I can answer on that real quick? Okay, moving on to the principle of least privilege. So in this section, we're going to be using WordPress roles and privileges to minimize the impact of an attack, be it external or internal. So when you fire up a brand new installation of WordPress, there are several default roles. WordPress comes from a newspaper background, so a lot of these role definitions are kind of analogous to what you would find in a newspaper environment, where a subscriber is basically a reader of your website. A contributor is like a guest author or a guest columnist. They can contribute stuff, but you want to run it through an editor. And then we have an author, like a staff author. And eventually everything is read and approved and corrected by an editor before it actually makes its way into the newspaper. Key thing to note here is not everyone needs administrator. I've done it. I know everyone else here has done it. Someone, who needed access to the website, like, oh, I don't know, just give them full administrator and go away, leave me alone, kid. But that will create problems. If that person doesn't know what they're doing and they start clicking around and deleting something in panic, they could break your website. If that person's account gets hacked, or gets compromised, basically you give them roles that are specific, roles and privileges specific to what they need to do, nothing more, nothing less. So from the bottom is least privileged to most privileged up here. Practical example. So say we've got a subscriber. A subscriber can read posts. Now you might think, well, why does someone need to be a subscriber if all of our posts are public? They can also comment if comments are allowed, which they shouldn't be if you were paying attention to presentation 1. So you can, with this blog visibility plugin that we'll be looking at, you can set a post such that you need to be a logged in user to be able to read it. A classic example of that would be, say, your area's budget. You want the trusted servants in your area, your GSRs, your DCMs, etc., to be able to read the budget and comment effectively on it at area assembly. But you don't necessarily want, Joe Blow browsing, some anonymous person on the internet looking at your budget. That's where the subscriber role comes into play. Next step up from that would be a contributor. That would be like a DCM. Maybe that person wants to post, flyers or announcements for their district. They cannot publish it themselves, but what they can do is they can write it and then they can submit it for review to an editor. The editor approves it. And once the editor publishes it, that contributor cannot go back and re-edit what has been published. Moving up the stack, an author would be like an area officer, someone who we trust to do the proofreading and abide by the traditions of the program. Now they can assign posts to a category or tag, but they should not be able to edit or create new taxonomies. And they also have the ability to upload and attach images. What they cannot do is they can't create new users, do anything with plugins or themes, and they cannot modify other people's posts. They can only modify their own posts. That's the key thing for an author. Whereas an editor, they can publish and they could also edit other people's posts by necessary because we need to do those typo corrections. They can also create and edit new tags and categories that can then be assigned by an author. But an editor still cannot modify users, cannot add, delete plugins, etc., or edit themes. You would need to be an administrator to do that. So an example for an editor would be like the web committee member, who's doing all the pre-check, make sure everything looks good before it goes live. And then the web chair would be an administrator who kind of controls who gets what role. Hang on, let me jump back, make sure I didn't, okay. I had to check my notes. So now we're gonna jump into demo 5A. So we have our little local chapter of Catnipaholics, and we've got a little bit of drama going on there. So let me log into demo 5. Let me go to our users list. All right, so here are all of our users. So we have Grand Poobah, who is an administrator. That's what we've been using. So he would be the web chair. And then we have Sean S., who is a brand new web committee member. We've got him set up as an editor. And then we've got Nigella here. She's our treasurer for Area 999 of Catnipaholics Anonymous. She's got an author, so we'll see that she has posted the Area 999 budget for everyone to view. Then we've got Asher. Asher here is the DCM for District 666, and he is a contributor because we don't really trust him. And then lastly, we've got Jack. Jack is the GSR for the Friends of Bill the Cat meeting, and he is a subscriber, meaning he can only read posts that have been marked subscribers only, but he cannot make any posts. All right, note that we have this change role thing. So if I wanted to, I'm not going to, but I could make Asher an administrator and change that. Now, by default, any particular user can only be in a single, can only have a single role, but we'll be changing that. Also note over here, this last login column, this was added by the admin and site enhancement plugin that we talked about in part 1 of this presentation. This is not a by default category, but it's really helpful, again, for analyzing, hey, what happened when, and when was the last time, Nigella logged in? All right. So we're going to take a look at Jack, and just a reminder, Jack should be able to see the budget and financial report. So let me go to the area budget report. Now I can see this because I am logged in as Grand Poobah. That's great. Now the problem is I am gonna go and open this page in a incognito window. So in this incognito window, I'm not logged in as anyone, and guess what? I can still see this budget. That's not cool. Don't worry about that. We can fix that. So I'm going to edit this post. And go ahead and expand this. I'm going to select my table. And when I activated that block visibility plugin, it added a new meta box over here on the right called visibility. I'm going to expand that and select user role and change it to logged in. And I'm going to save this post. Now, if I were to jump back to my incognito window and refresh, have a little bit of a problem here because it says, hey, below is a monthly report. And then, of course, we don't see the table because only the table is not visible to people who are not logged in. So just in order to have it be, a little easier on the eyes, I'm going to do add after. I'm going to change this to heading. And you must be logged into budget. And then I'm going to go over to visibility and show that heading to user role logged out. I'm going to save this. Note how this visibility tool adds this little colored dotted line in the little, user role here. That's the indicator that the visibility plugin is active for that block. And this, of course, assumes you are using a block-based theme. So now, if I jump back to my incognito window, refresh, I get that nice little error message that I created. And just to prove that user Jack can read that, Okay, so I'm going to log out here. I'm going to log back in as Jack. Skip the two-factor authentication. And note how the admin dashboard, there are far fewer options because he has far fewer privileges. I'm going to actually view the front end of the site. And Jack can read Nigella's annual budget because he is a subscriber. So that is the first half of demo 5A, or the first little bit of drama in our Catnapaholics Anonymous chapter. Now, let's say the next little bit of drama, because there's always more than one bit of drama. Our friend Asher, our DCM, develops a little resentment against Nigella because she went number 2 in his litter box. So Asher decides he's going to get even with Nigella by defacing the Area 999 website because he has a login there. So we're going to log in as Asher. And we're going to skip the two-factor authentication because cats do not have opposable thumbs and therefore cannot enter the 6-digit authentication code. So Asher got his resentment. He is relist on the kitty weed, and he's going to go in and first off, now he can see his own posts. He can see other people's posts, but note how he can't modify other people's posts. So, but he does have this add new post button. So Asher's going to create his post and say, Catnapaholics is a cult. All hail basement cat. And note how up here in the upper right, he doesn't have a publish button. Instead, he has a submit for review button. Other things, because he is just a contributor, he does not have the ability to set a featured image. If I were to create an image or try to upload an image, I can, if I know the URL, I can insert it, but I do not have the ability to open or manipulate the media library because he is a semi-trusted he is not a well-trusted entity. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to submit for review. And now he can view his preview. So this is what it will look like when and if someone is foolish enough to publish that for him. But if we go back to our main website, oops, back to the public. We will see that that post has not been published. So I'm going to log out as Asher, log back in as Grand Poobah, and we're actually going to be cleaning that up in the next demo. Go ahead, log in. That is the end of demo 5A, which is the beginning of Catnapaholics drama. Any questions I can answer on here real quick? All right. So how we accomplished all of that was using WordPress privileges. What are privileges? Well, let me talk to you about that. It's a fairly complex topic. They take the form of a verb underscore, then an optional modifier, then another underscore, and then a subject. So take, for example, edit published posts, publish others posts. So some examples, for example, edit underscore posts and edit underscore posts. Now the difference is edit posts means they can only edit their own posts, whereas edit other posts can edit posts that belong to other people. Publish means make it live on the website. And found a really helpful resource for deciphering what that is and also what privileges are granted by default to each of the default roles. And one of the beautiful things about WordPress, and one of the more complex, is that all of these roles can be modified, that you can create new roles, you can create new privileges, you can add additional privileges to additional individual users or roles. And new plugins can create their own additional privileges specific to that plugin. So let's take a look at how that looks in the real world. It's demo 5B privileges. Let me go back in here. To do that, we're going to use a utility called user role editor. And that is down here. I'm going to go ahead and activate that. Now I'm going to go down in here into settings. And I like to check show administrator role in user role editor. And I like the 3-column view for capacities or for capabilities. And we'll see why in just a minute. I'm going to go ahead and save that. All right, so now if I look at my users menu, I have this new menu option called user role editor. Up here, I select what role I want to look at. So I'm going to look at administrator, and we see these are all of the privileges that are granted to administrator. So we see delete others pages, delete plugins, etc. Compare and contrast that to contributor. Contributor, if I only show granted only, all that person can do is delete their own posts, edit their own posts, and read. And then author is somewhere in the middle. One of the reasons I like this plugin is you can do a quick filter for privileges related to plugins if you know the syntax that it uses. Now, these are the privileges by default, but you have the ability to add a new role. So I am going to add a new role. I am going to call it Ops Manager, and the display name is going to be Operations Manager, and I'm not going to copy any of the existing roles. If I wanted to, I could copy someone else's. I'm not going to do that. So the example for this is, say we have Sean, that new member of the web committee, and we're going to assign him as an operations manager. His because he's a technical guy, he's not very good with the graphics, but he's, we're going to have him be responsible for logging in every 2 weeks, checking the plugins, updating any of the plugins, updating the themes. That's all he's going to be responsible for. So we're going to give this operations role manager the ability to activate plugins because he needs, because the role needs that in order to see the plugins menu to begin with. And then we're also going to update plugins. Note how we're not going to give him the ability to edit plugins or install plugins or delete plugins, just update. And we're going to do the same thing before with themes. So in order to see the appearance menu, and so we need to give that person switch themes, and then we're also going to give update themes. And now I'm going to hit update and yes. Now if I clear my filter, and granted, these are the roles that an operations manager has. Now I'm going to go back to my user list. Now, a couple things that user role editor added. So we have these two new pull downs. We have the change role. Note that we see our new role in here. We can also add roles and revoke roles. So what user role editor allows us to do is a user can have multiple roles. So the other thing that this plugin added is we have this capabilities option here. So we're going to take a look at Sean, our web committee newbie. We're going to take a look at Sean's capabilities. And we are going to, we see Sean's primary role is editor. We're going to add operations manager. Holy cow, we're doing, wow. Time flies. And then I'm going to go ahead and update. Sorry, I just looked at the clock. So what that does is basically that adds those additional roles to Sean. And so now if I were to log out and log back in as Sean, come on, Phil. There we go. I haven't verified that I'm human. There we go. Skip two-factor authentication. Okay, so Sean's going to go into, well, first off, we're going to clean up the mess that Asher left behind. So we're going to go into posts. And we see this pending approval post for Catnapsaholics is a cult. As an editor, I have the ability to set the featured image. I can also assign this post to different categories if I want to. Here, for some reason, it's not working for me, probably because my website is slow, but I'm going to go ahead and trash that post. And then go back in here because I wanted to clean up. And now, because I also have Operations Manager in addition to Editor, Sean can go into plugins and note that I don't have the add new plugins. I can't delete any of these inactive plugins, but I can roll back plugins. So I'm going to roll back Akismet. I can activate it. And then I could also conceivably update it once I've rolled it back, because that's all we really want our operations manager to be doing. Don't want them adding any new plugins, etc. There we go. And now let me log out as Sean and go back in as Grand Poobah. And we're going to take a look at that activity log that we enabled in one of the previous demos. Activity log, boom. So we see all that activity that's been going on during this demo. And you could filter this. So say filter for posts. And we see Asher created a post. Asher updated it. Sean trashed it. Sean trashed another post. We can filter for plugins. And we see that user role editor was activated. You can also filter by users or by roles. That is what activity log buys us. And that is the end of demo 5B. Any questions I can answer on this real quick? Okay, last menu, and I'm going to actually blow through this real quick. I tend to be a little OCD. I love admin menu, or I like to have a lot of control over the admin menu as you install new plugins. Different plugins put things all over they want. Basically, it'll become a mess. I think we've all looked at this. The solution to that is admin menu editor. The other thing that it allows you to do is it also gives you powerful options to hide menus from groups that you don't want them to see. You can also control how you want things to be sorted. So let me jump into that demo real quick. Plugins installed. Asher has decided to come in and say hi. He was upset that his post got deleted. All right, admin menu editor. Activate. And now we're going to go into settings. And say, I don't want this activity log menu to show up to anyone unless they are an administrator. And say I want to move this comments thing down to the bottom because I've turned off comments. And then I want to go in here and for whatever reason, when admin menu editor creates its own settings page, it just calls it menu editor. I want to call it admin menu editor. And I like having my settings alphabetical beyond the defaults. So I can go ahead and do these. I hit save. And note how it has moved things around. It's renamed that. And if I were logged in as someone who was not an administrator, I would not see the activity log option at all. You can also go in here and hide the existence of plugins from non-administrative users. So say I don't want people to know I'm using Akismet, I can hide that from someone like Sean, who's an operations manager, not an administrator. Boom. And that is the quick and dirty for admin menu cleanup. Given that I've kind of gone a little over on my time, touch real briefly on HSTS. So header security and HTTP strict transport security. Basically, the story behind this is I'd gone through and hardened my website pretty darn good. And then my co-chair ran a utility called Zap against it and generated this long list of reports that, hey, you should fix this. Hey, you should fix this. Hey, you should fix this. So I started looking at the suggested remediations for all of these, and I found a plugin called HTST. I would be we don't have time for me to explain what all of these things are, but basically this is the utility. It's called Zap, and you point it to demo3.local or whatever your website is. You hit attack, and it basically tries all kinds of various well-known attacks against your website. At the end, it generates a report. This is an example of the report that it generates. And say, for example, the first one was a content security policy header is not set. Okay, what exactly does that? These are the URLs that it found it, and it says, what does that mean? To ensure your web server is configured to set a policy, you could read more about it here. Then, found each of these other things. So basically, when I found it, everything showed me back to this plugin called HSTS. It's a really, really simple configuration. Header security advanced. Actually, the other thing that it says is basically there's a whole bunch of additional headers that are present that don't need to be present to give away information about your web server, how it's configured, etc., that you do not want to give to an anonymous hacker. So this plugin basically hides that. I'm going to go ahead and activate it. And then go into the settings. And it's super, super simple. Just a couple of checkboxes, really good documentation. I implore you to read it. And that is pretty much my time. I will warn you, if you select the preload warning here, one of these here, read this warning very carefully. It's kind of something you have to register your site that your site is set up to always use HSTS. There's no going back from it. So read the warning, and that is my time. Honestly, I thought, I've only dabbled a little bit with Google Forms, so I can't say I've really played with trying to integrate that with reCAPTCHA. Honestly, I'd assumed that because Google owns reCAPTCHA and they have a vested interest in keeping their infrastructure safe, they probably already have some kind of a CAPTCHA-like solution that doesn't require human interaction.
Yeah, what they suggested was the first question be a math question to be able to move on to the rest of it. But
seriously?
Yeah, that was one of their solutions, but I will look into it more. But thanks. I appreciate it. Thanks, Sean.
Okay, no problem.
Any other questions for Sean? Well, seeing no hands. Again, I'd like to thank you, Sean. We all do as a steering committee. Before we close, there's a couple of closing announcements regarding these technology sharing sessions. As I mentioned prior to the presentation, we are a learning group with varying levels of technology experience, from beginners to experts. And because we are a learning group, that means that all of you are eligible to present at future tech sharing sessions on the topics you've learned something about in your journey of AA service. So, if you haven't already, please fill out this topics survey, the same one I put in chat last month, to let us know both what topics you'd like to learn more about and what topics you'd be available to present. Also, please fill out the feedback form for today's session. Here's a link to the Tech Sharing Session archives where you can find all the recordings of past sessions, as well as all the links and supporting resources. The recording of today's session will be added to the archives, emailed out, and posted on the TIAA forum when ready, and typically within a week. To be added to the sharing session email distribution list, set a reminder the week before each session, and to be sent the link to the recording the day after each session, please email techsharingsession@gmail.com. You can stop the recording. Thank you all for making this a wonderful tech sharing session. Our next session